My name is Liam Carter, and this happened in Austin, Texas. I woke up because the house felt wrong. Not loud, not cold. Wrong, like when you step into a room and forget why you came, except the feeling had weight pressing on my chest until my eyes snapped open. My ceiling was flickering. A pale light pulsed across it in slow waves. Bright, dim, bright, like lightning trapped somewhere it couldn't escape. I rolled toward my nightstand, expecting my phone alarm, maybe some emergency alert, but the sound never came. No buzz, no ring, just that silent flashing. When I picked up my phone, the screen was already on, and the lock screen was gone. There were no apps, no background photo, no time, just huge red digits sitting in the center like they'd burned their way through the glass. 00:00:00. I waited for them to change. They didn't. My mouth went dry. "Okay," I whispered, still halfway in the comfort of denial. "Glitch or something." But my tablet on the dresser lit up with the same numbers. My smartwatch vibrated against the wood and joined them. Even my old laptop, closed and dead, hummed and opened itself, showing the exact same frozen countdown. Every screen, every angle, watching me notice it. I swung my legs off the bed, and that's when I realized the silence was complete. The fridge wasn't running. No cars passed outside. The air vent had stopped its low, familiar whisper. It felt like the world had been muted so something else could be heard. My heartbeat grew loud enough to hurt. I tried the phone's power button, holding it down until my thumb cramped, but the display refused to move, like the device had decided it belonged to someone else now. A faint smell drifted into the room, sour and metallic, the way the air tastes after you bite your tongue. I followed it to my doorway and saw a thin line of darker shadow stretching across the hall floor, as if something had dragged itself past while I slept. My stomach tightened. I knew without knowing how that the timer wasn't counting toward anything. It had finished. Whatever it measured had already happened, and I had somehow slept through it. The thought made my skin prickle. From the living room, something shifted its weight on the hardwood. A slow, careful adjustment, followed by the softest sound of breath trying not to be heard. My phone trembled in my hand. New words appeared beneath the zeros. "Why didn't you stay down?" The hallway answered with a single step toward my door. I slammed my bedroom door and locked it, though I knew it would barely matter. The lock rattled under my own panic, cheap and fragile, like it could be twisted open with a finger. My hands shook so violently, I dropped my phone onto the floor, the screen lighting up the carpet with that same red glow, frozen on zeros. My mind screamed at me to call someone, anyone, but my throat had dried into sandpaper. I crouched to pick up the phone, my fingertip brushing the cracked case, and froze. The screen flickered, and I thought I saw something move in the reflection. My own shadow, but twisted, folding in impossible ways, bending at angles that should have broken bones. I jumped back, and the phone buzzed violently in my palm. A new message appeared, the blank sender once again haunting me. "You can't hide from what's already inside." My chest tightened, and my stomach lurched. I ran my hands down my face, trying to tell myself it was some sort of glitch, a hallucination caused by exhaustion, stress, or God knows what. But deep down, I knew better. I wasn't imagining it. This thing, whatever it was, had marked me. And it had been here the whole time. The silence in the house shifted then, subtle but unmistakable, like air sliding across a wet floor. It came from inside the walls. First, it was a faint scuffling, then scraping, slow and deliberate, circling the hallway, following the shape of my bedroom. My laptop chimed. I froze, my blood turning to ice. On the screen was a new file, labeled still_here.mp4, and when I clicked it, my stomach dropped into my boots. The footage showed the living room from a strange angle, overhead, impossible. In it, I was standing by the couch, frozen, staring down the hallway toward my bedroom. Then the front door creaked open. No wind, no hand visible, and something tall and wrong stepped inside. It moved in a fluid, unnatural way, stretching limbs where they shouldn't bend, head tilting against the ceiling, back folding like it was made of multiple broken spines. My recorded self didn't scream, didn't move, and the creature reached out with a hand impossibly long, wrapping around the throat of my image, squeezing in slow, measured agony. My heart raced as I realized I wasn't watching a recording from the past. I was seeing what would happen next, or what had already happened. My phone buzzed again. We keep coming back. The bedroom door handle rattled lightly. I stumbled backward, barely breathing, as I realized I was still here, alive. But that meant it hadn't finished yet, and somehow, I don't remember dying, but my body and mind knew it had happened. That's the only explanation for the hollow ache in my chest, the bruising that bloomed along my throat and collarbone, tender and insistent, like proof I shouldn't still be here. My living room was quiet now, the red glow from the devices gone, but the silence was suffocating, a pressure that pushed against my ears, my skull, my lungs. Even in daylight, the shadows from the blinds stretched too long, crawling up walls and skimming the ceiling like they had weight, as if something unseen was pacing just outside my vision. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that this was the shock of waking from a nightmare that had bled into reality, but the lingering coppery scent in the air, warm, wet, metallic, refused to obey reason. My phone vibrated suddenly in my hand, jerking me upright. A message. Look at the time. My hands trembled as I glanced at the screen. 3:12 a.m. I had woken hours ago, hours I couldn't remember, lost in some loop I didn't want to think about. Every corner of the house felt like it had shifted while I slept. The hallway that should have ended in the bathroom now seemed to stretch into darkness, impossibly long, padded with silence, and I knew instinctively that whatever had been inside had been moving, and maybe it still was. Then I noticed my call history. The last call I made was to 911, duration 0. I didn't remember dialing. The voicemail app had a new message waiting from me. My voice, trembling, almost unrecognizable, whispered frantically, "It's inside the house. Please, don't let it." A crash, a wet, sickening crunch. Silence. My stomach heaved. That wasn't a dream. That had been real. My own hand shook as I realized that each time I woke, something had already claimed me, and somehow I had survived, just long enough to repeat it all. From the walls came scraping again, slow, deliberate, circling, measuring, learning the shape of my body, my furniture, the air I breathed. The laptop chimed. A new video appeared, the gap.mp4. In it, I watched myself collapse in the hallway, limbs folding wrong, eyes rolling back, as a figure moved toward me, impossibly tall, back bending, head nearly brushing the ceiling, fingers dragging across the wood, scraping nails against floorboards. It had no face I could recognize, only a void that seemed to consume light. Yet, it had my body in its grip, and for 1 second, I saw through its perspective. My own fear reflected back at me, endless, looping, inescapable. I dropped the phone, falling to my knees, and whispered, "Stop, stop it, please." The house answered with a wet breath, close, patient, deliberate. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. And then I remembered. If I had survived this long, it was only because it allowed me to. But why? Because it wanted me awake? Or because it wanted me to watch the next one die? The hallway outside my bedroom stretched impossibly long, darker than it should have been, like the house itself had grown hungry while I wasn't looking. Each step I took felt wrong, my feet sinking slightly into the floorboards as though the wood were softening, reshaping itself beneath me. I tried to reason, this is fatigue, dehydration, hallucination, but logic faltered under the oppressive air. The smell of iron and decay had thickened, curling around my nose, clinging to my throat. That's when I saw it, or him, or me, or whatever it was. A body, pale and twisted, sprawled across the carpet mid-hallway. My own face, my own hands, but grotesque, flattened into a mask of terror. The neck was at an unnatural angle, eyes wide and staring, the skin grayed and mottled, fingers bent in impossible positions, crushed deep into the floor as though struggling to hold on to something long gone. My stomach turned and bile rose, but I forced myself closer, needing to confirm it, needing to understand. And then I realized this wasn't just me. It was a record of every time I'd failed, every loop I'd run, every attempt to escape. This was what stayed, and I understood with a bone-deep certainty. The creature didn't just haunt me, it cataloged me. My failures, my fear, my survival. It had been here before, and it would be here again. I wanted to run, but the air in the hallway thickened, pulling at my lungs, slowing my pulse, whispering that running wouldn't matter. That even now, as I stared at the corpse that wore my face, it could reach me wherever I tried to hide. I backed toward the living room, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. The front door was ajar. Sunlight spilled across the floorboards, but it didn't comfort me. The creature was standing there, patient, waiting, watching. I could see it fully now, impossibly tall, back folding and twisting in ways human bodies shouldn't, limbs stretching, skin pale but veined like something recently dug from the soil. Its head tilted down at me, and I felt a shiver crawl straight into my spine, a premonition of pain and inevitability. For a moment, it seemed to consider me, not as prey, not as plaything, but as something to correct. I tried to speak, voice catching in my throat, but it didn't need me to scream. A phone vibrated in my pocket. I hadn't realized I still held it. The screen lit up with new text from the blank sender. "Thank you." I swallowed, gagging on fear, because I knew exactly what it meant. The zeros on every device flickered, then changed. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 1 second. It wasn't counting down anymore. It was counting up, recording the time I had survived, the moments I had cheated death. And the creature screamed, not with sound but with motion, a shudder that rattled the walls, shook the floor, and reached into me, as if disappointed the loop had failed to claim me again. Light burst through the windows, blinding, yet it didn't matter. The creature didn't move away. It only waited, patient, towering, perfect in its wrongness. And I understood then, with every fiber of my being, that the house wasn't mine, that I wasn't free, that what stayed would always be waiting. And when the timer finally ended, it would be here again, no matter how many times I woke. I woke with a start, chest hammering, drenched in sweat, the pale morning sun cutting sharp lines across my bedroom floor. For a split second, I convinced myself it was over, that I had finally escaped the loops, the endless countdowns, the creature that had haunted me through every impossible night. The room looked normal. My TV was dark, my laptop asleep, my phone silent and ordinary. The shadows didn't crawl along the walls. The air smelled clean, not of iron or rot. Relief slammed into me with a force I hadn't realized I'd been holding back. I threw off the sheets and stumbled to the door, expecting the front hallway to be empty, the living room still in its mundane, sunlit reality. I paused mid-step when I noticed the front door. It stood open, just a few inches, as though it had been left that way accidentally. Muddy footprints trailed inward, leading toward the living room, not outward, and my stomach dropped into the pit of my chest. I hadn't left it open. I never did. Something had been inside while I slept, something that had walked through my home, touched everything, and left its evidence behind without a sound. My pulse spiked again. I felt the familiar pull of fear curling through me, hot and sharp, and I realized that the house hadn't forgotten. It had been waiting for me, marking me, reminding me of what had already happened and what could happen again. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs refused, stiff and trembling under the weight of the unseen. I grabbed my phone, desperate for some tangible proof that I was alive, that this wasn't just another loop, another prelude to death. Before I could dial anyone, a notification blinked across the top of the screen. A calendar reminder, unfamiliar and deeply wrong. 3:12 a.m. Accepted. My fingers froze, my mind blank with terror. I didn't create that reminder. It had been scheduled months ago, long before any of this began, but it felt new, immediate, like a command. The TV clicked on by itself, red digits filling the screen again, not at 0 this time. Hours, minutes, seconds, counting down from some impossible point, recording the time I still had before it arrived. I stumbled backward into the living room, every nerve screaming. The creature was there, or at least something was. A presence in the corner, too tall, too still, back bending in unnatural curves, head tilting to catch my every move. And then my phone buzzed for the last time, a final message from the blank sender. "We'll see if you stay this time." A wet, deliberate breath echoed from somewhere deep in the house. Not behind me, not in front of me, but everywhere, as though it had filled the air while I slept, waiting for me to wake. I sank to the floor, knowing I hadn't survived the loop. I had only postponed it. And as I stared at the glowing timer on the TV, I understood a truth worse than death itself. The countdown had started again, and this time it wouldn't stop until it had me, or until I learned exactly what it wanted from me.